In this video, I want to show you how I created this design right here, this kawaii dinosaur design. I'm going to show you how I got the graphic, what I did with it, and hopefully you can learn some tips and tricks that I do with this design and use it in yours. Let's go. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me on this video. My name is Juno with Detour Shirts. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a design using MidJourney as a starting point. So I'm going to use MidJourney to get a graphic and then convert that into an SVG, a vector file, and then bring that into Affinity Designer and then play around with different things, different shapes, fonts and different things, and using Canva also as some graphics. So I'm going to put it all together. I'm going to show you all the different things that I did, layering it on top of each other step by step so that you can learn some different tips and tricks to help you create a design of your own that maybe has all these kinds of details. So let's get into MidJourney first, and I'll show you the exact prompt that I used to get this design, this kawaii dinosaur design, and then we'll take it from there. Alright, so here I am on MidJourney. You can see this is the prompt that I used. I actually didn't write cute. It was supposed to be vector art, cute kawaii style with black outlines, a T-Rex wearing a white t-shirt, which I thought would do, but it didn't do, and a white background. So you can see I got this right here, and I used this one right here. I got lucky and MidJourney put headphones on here, and I think this one turned it out great. There's a bunch of other ones. I mean, that I could have used that or that. There's a bunch of cool things on here. I did some other ones as well. These came out great. I could have used any one of these actually and just cut them out. But I went with the real cute one with the DJ headphones, this one right here. And I just went into my MidJourney. And so now I'm going to download it and we're going to convert it to an SVG because right now it's just a JPEG file. And I need to move things around and cut things out. And this is great because it has this thick black outline, which is why I put it in the prompt. So because of the black outline and the white background, I can easily click the white background and remove it, and there'll still be this black outline, which is really easy to kind of navigate with when you have an SVG. So let me download this right now. And then the next thing we'll see is Vectorizer AI. So I'm gonna change it to a SVG. So here we are on Vectorizer AI. Step 2 is to convert it to an SVG once you found your or got your design from MidJourney or whatever AI. You could have done this with Leonardo and any other AI application, right? So grab that PNG, bring it in here. You can see it's a good size. It's starting to already process it, and it doesn't take very long in Vectorizer AI to do it, but you can see the result is great. And this is why I put vector art inside of MidJourney as one of my prompts, is because we're changing it to a vector anyway. So I don't want to do one that's like photorealistic and change it to a vector because that's going to change the look of it. If it was photorealistic, I would change it or upscale it as a raster file or Photoshop file anyway and upscale it that way. But I want the vector file so that I can bring it and use it with some other things in Affinity Designer, since Affinity Designer is a vector art program, right? So I'm going to download these right here, or this one, and hit download. Now the next thing we're going to do is bring this SVG and just drag it into Affinity Designer, and you'll see that I can remove things very easily. Alright, so here we are in Affinity Designer. I just dragged it into the application, the SVG file that I made with Vectorizer AI. You can see it's right here, and it's really easy to remove stuff. You can see there's the white background right there. I'm going to just remove that, and then I'm going to grab all of this right here. I'm going to hit Command C, and I'm going to make a separate file that is 4500 by 5400, or I could just do it here. So let's do that. I can click right here, insert artboard. You can see right there, my artboard is 1024 by 1024 right now because that's the size that MidJourney makes, but I'm going to change the artboard to 4500 by 5400. And you can see how much of a difference that is. I'm going to back it up here, holding down my option and scrolling down. See that? It's so much bigger. So I'm going to do this. Now because it's a vector file, I can scale it up without any problem. I'm going to hold down Shift to make sure that it doesn't do this kind of thing. So I'll hold down Shift and it keeps my proportions right. See that? Now I can move it in the middle here like that. I'm gonna do a white background just so I can see it. Right now there's a transparent background. Boom. All right. So if I don't want some of these other things, I can remove it, right? I can click on here and remove it and so on. And I can remove these lines really easy, or these dots. I could even remove this here if I don't want this either. And so on. So that's what I'm going to play with. You can do that on your own. Just remove everything you don't want. And because of this nice big thick black line, you can see it's real easy to come in here and remove some of those things, right? And you can really see these other lines like that. So I'm going to do that, remove different things, and then I'll show you the next step after that. All right, so I removed all those things. You can see I just have the dinosaur and the shadow. I thought I'd leave the shadow just for some interest there. Now, originally I was thinking of doing this like Jurassic Park, and the way Jurassic Park, the dinosaur is facing to the right. So I can just do this, select all, and then I can do this on Affinity Designer, flip horizontal. And then I thought, you know, Jurassic Park has that red circle background, so I'm just gonna do the circle here. And what's nice about it is if I put this in the back here, move to back, you can see it's rounded right here. So I thought, man, that looks really great for a circle. And I'm gonna use red since Jurassic Park used red, but also there's red here, and red's really good for Japanese kawaii stuff anyway, so I thought it was perfect using the red here. And then, you know, I started playing around with size, so I thought maybe if I move this to the side here and do the circle in the middle, maybe I could put something along here. And what I thought I could put is some Japanese text. So I'm going to show you how I did that. I'm going to find some Japanese text on the internet, and then with Canva, and then I'm going to use some of the Canva fonts that I find there and do it here, because Canva has some really good Japanese fonts that's rounded. They just have a very wide selection, more than I have here on Affinity Designer, which is why I'm using Canva for that. So let's get into Canva now, and I'll show you how I made the Japanese text. So here we are on Canva. So not only does Canva have some really cool Japanese fonts, but it does translation as well. So let me show you how to do that. First, we're going to type in something that we want translated. I'll just go to text here, add a heading. I'm going to type in dinosaur music, because the dinosaur was listening to music. That's the only reason I did that. And then we're going to go to translate. If you used translate before, it will be on here, but you can go to apps and come down here and see there's translate right there. But I've used it before, so it's on here on my menu. So I'm gonna just hit translate, and it's gonna automatically detect that it's English, but I can put in English if I want. So you can see English. And then I already put this as Japanese last time, so it's remembering Japanese here, but you can go here and just type in Japanese as well. And then you can see current page 1, that's the one I'm on, so that's great. And I'm gonna hit translate. So it's gonna take a little while, but it doesn't take that long. And there it is, really easy. So I want my text to go down. So all I'm doing is go in here, hit enter, come in here, enter, enter, and enter right there. And I'm gonna try different fonts. So I'm gonna do, it already gave me a nice font here. Can see it's in Japanese, but I want it rounder. So I'm gonna come in here and look for some cool things. You can type in Japanese font if you want. You can see Japanese, and it will have a bunch of them here. I don't know the name of these because I can't read Japanese, but you can see, you can just go down here and try some of these things out, right? Something round like that, that's a fun one, and so on. And then go down until you find one. Some of these are nice. Some of them actually have like an English name, but a lot of them don't. So I'm just gonna go in here until I find one. So I found this one right here. I can't tell you what the name of the font is, but let's see. It's this one right here, this rounded one. It is a pro font, but you can use any one that you want, right? So that's the one I did. There's lots of free fonts for this, and I also made it, you notice that I made it squished up a little bit, so the spacing, you can see the line spacing was like this, but I moved it in closer like that. All right. So the best way to save this is to save it as a SVG. I'm going to go to share, I'm going to go to download, I'm going to go to this page, page 3, right there, or just use current page, page 3. And then instead of PNG, I'm going to do SVG, which is great if you have Pro. If you don't have Pro, you can save it as a PNG too. That will still work because it's the right size. Oh, just make sure that it is the right size. So you may want to make it bigger like this so that it fills up the whole space if you're going to save it as a PNG. If it's a SVG, then I can scale it in Affinity Designer, right? So SVG, make sure you pick the right page, page 3, and then download. And then we're going to go back to Affinity Designer, and I'll show you how to use it from there. So here you can see I brought in the SVG file from Canva. You can see it's all text, not text, it's SVG. So I can come in here, and what's nice about SVG is if I wanted a different color, I can come in here and change it to white if I wanted. Or I could even put an outline. If I wanted a black outline on it, I could do that too. Right, and just make this bigger. Boom, and I probably would put it in the back too if I really wanted to outline, but I like it black. I think it matches with the black outline here. So let me come in here, make sure that it's all black. Whoops. Boom. Okay, so the next thing I see is we're trying to do a tall rectangle, so I'm going to fill in this space right here, and I thought I would use Vexel's quote generator to find something. I suggested dinosaur music, and one of the suggestions that it did was rock and roar, so it's kind of a pun for rock and roll. So I'm going to come in here and just type in rock and roar. So I'm going to do roar, and the font that I'm using is called Watermelon. It's one of my favorites, you can see right there. And I'm gonna do it all caps. Let's see. Yeah, just because I think it works better for spacing. So I'm gonna do roar, that, and then I'm gonna do holding down Option and pulling it up here. I'm gonna do rock, and, or I could do and as well. So just type in. Yeah, so I'm making one bigger, one smaller to create some interest, right? And so I can do that, rock and roar. And a lot of times I like to tilt it on its side just to, because roar kind of gives some action. So by tilting it, it kind of gives it more interest and action. So I'm gonna do that and do this. And another thing that I like to do here is kind of play with the contrast. So since that one's black on a white or light background, I think I'm gonna do this one white. So I'm gonna do this white like that, but you can't see it. So I'm gonna put one in the background layers, and I'm gonna do Command J, so it's in the back. You can see right here, there's two. This one's in the front, this one's in the back. On the back one, I'm gonna do an outline like this. And I'm gonna make it thicker. Like that. Cool, right? And another thing you can do to give it some interest is to give it some dimension. So I'm going to take that same one in the back and hit Command J again, so this one on the back, and I'm going to pull it out here like this. Now, it doesn't have to be white, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to, instead of changing it white, I'm going to make the whole thing black. See that? And there you go. So this one's kind of sticking out. It feels like it has dimension on it. And then this here, I can play around with it. So I'm going to play around with this. And the next thing I'm going to do is kind of connect these two lines. So you can see one thing that I like to do is come in here and play with the pen tool and do this. And so that it feels like it's really connected, right? So I'm going to fix that up. I need to do it there and there and there and there. And right here is a good one, and right there is another good one, to just kind of look like it's pulling and giving it that dimension instead of it having a drop shadow. It feels more like 3D. All right, so that's looking good. You can see I fixed it right there, and I kind of move these around so I can change the letters into, convert it to curves, and then each letter is its own thing, so I can move it around like this. And I just kind of played with that movement so that it has that rock and roll feeling like it's moving. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put in some musical notes here, and then maybe some other little graphics around here to kind of fill in the space. So I can do easily like a circle, like the like we saw in the beginning when this had circles on it, and then I can change it to red. And I'm also going to use yellow. Even though yellow's not here, I think it's a really good combination. So I can come in here. If it's on the red, I can't see red on red, but I could do yellow on red, you know, stuff like that. And then I'm going to go into Canva and find some graphics, some Japanese graphics, maybe put something here and fill the space here, and so on. So that's what I'm going to do next. It's going to take me a little while to find those things, but there's lots of graphics on Canva, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go Canva, download them as SVGs or PDFs. Either one would work, and then bring it in here so that it's a vector file that I'm bringing in here, so I can color it and move it and do it, all those kinds of things. So here's the final. You can see I have musical notes, and these are all vectors. I didn't find this on Canva, but I drew this myself, but you can see it's real easy to draw here. But if you wanted to use them from Canva, I think that would work really well. I was looking for, or trying to draw here, something really thick. Since this text is really thick, I thought a thicker kind of musical note would work, so I made it a lot fatter. And you can look for those things on Canva, like I said. The next thing I did was I drew these little lines. It's kind of like stars, but it's not as pointy since everything's rounded. I kind of rounded the edges to match with the circles there. I found this on Canva. I did a search for Japanese art, and I found this one. I thought it worked really good to kind of give it that feel that it's Japanese, right? We already have the Japanese text, but here's another thing from Japan or Japanese art. And then this one, I kind of tied in the dinosaur. So I said, look for some dinosaur art on Canva. So I found this right here, and this right here is just using the star feature. So I can come in here, do star like that, but I can add so many points, right? So instead of 5 points, I can do all these points, and I can grab this right here and pull this out like that, and then I can make it rounder, right? Like this. Pull that out, an outer circle, and just play around with it. You can see I can play with that and that, right? And eventually I had something like this, but it still needed a circle to knock it out. So what I could do is now I can come with a circle like that, hold down Shift while you're doing it, and you can have a perfect circle, and just make sure that it fits like that, right? And if you grab both of these together and align them together like this, you can see it's like that, and I can knock it out. So I can use this right here to subtract it, and there you go. Real easy. I just made that like that. And not exactly the same. I think I used more here, but that's how you do it, right? And let's move that away. I can throw that away now. So there you go. That's the final. I liked having this shadow here to give some interest, this 3D. Always think of different ways to draw interest and add more details. Some of them are big details like the words, and some of them are little details, which is good to draw interest. And this is nice on a white t-shirt, but you're always going to try and make it look good on a black t-shirt too. So here's the black and white version, or the black t-shirt version with some white text, and I changed this to white, right? And just playing around with the color again. So the same red background, because I think that's really important, the red circle like the Japanese flag, but then I'm using white here instead of black because it's a black background. So I think both of these turned out really great. You can use some of these techniques when you're building your kawaii design. Use Japanese text, you know, use a circle, use some of these little details, maybe some little graphics to add in the background, and some bigger text. Now it doesn't have to have English text. It can be all Japanese too, and maybe you did the Japanese across this way instead of down this way. I think that would work. Or you could have both, two Japanese texts here, and that's real easy to do with Canva and Affinity Designer. So I love having both of these to kind of play off of the graphics from Canva, but bringing it into Affinity Designer to kind of move this all around. Now I could have done most of this in Canva, but some of the things that I couldn't do in Canva is remove the background like I did here, in Affinity Designer. I don't have this font, this particular font that I like, that was in Canva, so you're gonna have to do that. And doing a 3D version of this graphic would be really tough to do in Canva as well. So lots of little things that you can do in Affinity Designer that you can't do in Canva, but I think you could get a lot of this stuff done in Canva, just not all of it. So there you go, that's how I did this design in Affinity Designer using Canva and MidJourney and Vectorizer AI to vectorize the MidJourney design. Hopefully this was really helpful for you so you can see kind of all the little things that come together and putting it all together to make a design that's interesting as well as works well in that tall rectangle. If you want to see more MidJourney and Leonardo prompts, I have this video right here where I compared Leonardo to MidJourney, and you can see the prompts that I use there as well. Thanks again for watching, and as always guys, keep creating and keep learning. I'll see you on the next one.